Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Tenacious V's podcast. A little different this week. This week we're only going to have Nona and I discussing on the podcast. Unfortunately, and broken hearts aside, our friend Kayla decided to step down from partaking in the podcast. She really just needed some time for herself and couldn't commit to the, time and effort it really takes to get these things going. People think that it's really easy. It isn't. And we're just so happy that she's able to spend the time where she really needs to. So this week it's just going to be Nona and I. And from here on out, Kayla will hop in as a guest speaker every now and again. So don't worry, you're not losing her forever. And neither are we. We still see her almost every day. But anyways, this week we're discussing one super badass babe, Jeanne La Pucelle, or as everyone commonly knows her, Joan of Arc. We jump into her whole life, why she was so monumentous, and why she was ultimately dubbed as one of the saints of France. We appreciate you guys so much for listening in, and we really hope you enjoy this episode. Again, if you have any questions along the way, you feel free to reach out to us via email, Facebook, Instagram. We're out on all the social medias. Thank you guys so much, and enjoy. Stay tenacious.
Bonjour, les amis, and welcome back to another episode of Tenacious V's podcast. This week we're going to be doing Joan of Arc.
So we're doing Joan of Arc. It was a request from somebody who we both just love so much.
Oh my gosh, I miss her every day. She's so wonderful. Hi, Roxy.
So this one goes out to our pal Roxy. She immediately requested that we do Joan of Arc, and this was months and months and months ago. So here we are.
Finally doing it.
Not that we wouldn't want to do her, because guys, this is a badass chick. I'm telling you, like, there's a reason why she's a saint.
Yeah, super cool. So jumping right in. They don't know exactly when she was born, but it seems to be around roughly 1412. Her parents were Jacques d'Arc and Isabelle I don't know if that's how you say Isabelle in French. Isabelle Rolme. And they were peasants in Domremy in northeast France. So they were farmers, and they owned land and cattle farmed is what they did. So Joan grew up raising cattle.
And she quilting. She was actually known for her quilting as well.
Yeah. And she loved spinning with her mother, spinning wool.
Yeah.
So her hometown was loyal to France despite being fully surrounded by enemies. And she stated that she started hearing visions and voices of Saint Michael, Saint Catherine, and Saint Margaret, who were giving her the messages of God.
So she was really devout. She was a super devout chick when she was younger. And when she started seeing these visions, she was super excited about Mass. She was really involved in the community, the church community. She also would go to confession for hours on end too. And, meanwhile, she's not a bad kid, but she was just super, super, super into God. And to the point where she was ostracized by her fellow classmates. They'd make fun of her for being weird, 'cause nobody loves church that much,
Well, her mom was extremely pious, and so she always made her drilled the Catholic Church into her from a young age. Her first vision, though, do you know where it happened?
She was out on her father's farm, right? With she was kind of looking towards the church, and she saw a flash of bright light.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and she was only 13, and it happened in 1425.
Okay.
Isn't that crazy?
That is crazy. That's so long ago.
I know. She said that when they left, the saints of the vision, that she cried because it was so beautiful and she didn't want them to go.
Right, and, she'd been having these visions for a little while before she even speaks up about it, She doesn't really say anything until she was about 16 years old, when she gets a vision that's telling her that she needs to help France,
Yeah. Yeah.
She got a vision that she was going to lead the Armenia army into battle. Like she was going to be the leader, not like I have a vision that we need to go to this rampart and take it out. It was she was the one
Yeah.
on the horse in the front.
And she had to take Charles VII to get coronated as king. Yeah.
Correct.
And she was the one that had to take him.
So a big reason why she chose to go on the Armenia side was because she grew up watching the Burgundian troops like take out her city and ransack it numerous times, and that's what we mean by enemies surrounded by him, or the Burgundians.
Mm-hmm. In the English.
In the English, right? The Burgundians and the English kind of meshed together. And who were the Burgundians?
The Burgundians, it was a political party that formed during the second half of the Hundred Years' War, which is the war that she was going to lead battle in.
Right.
And it refers to the supporters of the Duke of Burgundy, John the Fearless, and they formed after the Duke of Orleans, Louis the First, was assassinated, like in response.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So her vision mostly was to save Orleans, actually, because that had been taken over by the Burgundy army for, I mean, years at this point, and the people there really needed to be, it was like a civil war, so the people there needed to get helped because it's a main, tactical point in big city back then. So Orleans had been in battles for like months at that point, like straight up every day going after it. And the voices, told her that she was gonna head the siege of Orleans. She was an illiterate farm girl and knew nothing but riding horses, wielding swords, leading warriors, but she still knew that it was her duty. So what does she do? She leads them into a holy war. Sorry, that's a spoiler alert. We're gonna get there.
We'll get there.
But sorry, go on.
No, you're good. I actually read something that was saying that her beginnings might not have been as peasant-like as people think, because back then people paid like small fortunes to get their sons trained for battle and able to use a sword and a lance and able to actually hold and wield something that heavy for that long in battle.
Right.
And then also the fact that she was able to ride a war horse so well at like 16 is just like pretty unfathomable for like a small town farm girl that doesn't know anything.
I could see that, but
So-
I heard like once she had like been deemed as somebody who was really cool, they taught her and all that. But I mean, you're right. Like somebody doesn't just pick it up naturally that quick.
So what I read though is that when she was 16, she had a specific vision that said she needed to get to the Dauphin and help him get crowned king so France could be victorious in the Hundred Years' War.
Right.
So she said she'd been tasked with driving out the English and bringing him to Reims for a coronation. So at 16, she started following the divine orders and had a male relative, Doran Lassois, take her to Vaucouleurs to petition the garrison commander Robert de Baudricourt. She wanted an armed escort to take her to the king,
Yeah.
but he kind of just like laughed in her face the first time. And
So
like,
she
sent
comes
her
back
on her
2
way.
more times.
Yeah.
Dude. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so she comes back 2 more times, and eventually she does get an escort to the Dauphin's court. But to do that, she had to like go all the way around through all this Burgundian like territory.
Yeah.
200 miles, dude.
Yeah, and it was super dangerous. And she was riding a war horse
So you know what they did?
in the winter.
Yeah, so you know what they did? They decided to disguise her. That's when she first cuts her hair.
Yeah, she chopped it all off and she put on male clothing.
Mm-hmm.
That one of her male relatives suggested.
But I guess right there, that's where she'd be given a war horse, a sword, So yeah, you're right. I mean,
not until she was granted the escort. That's
Right.
when she would get it.
But like you said, like they're just escorting her. She
Yeah.
didn't get trained in any of that. So you're
Yeah.
right. I wonder if she did come from a little bit wealthier of a.
I don't know.
I mean, it's all speculation. This was in the 1400s.
Do you want to hear a quote that she said to the Baudricourt?
Yeah.
She said, I must be at the king's side. There will be no help if not from me, although I would rather have remained spinning at my mother's side. Yet must I go, and must I do this thing, for my lord wills that I do so.
Damn, dude. Everything she said was super prophetic.
So pious.
Yeah. Yeah. So eventually she does show up to court, and they're like super reluctant to believe if she's legit. But they also like couldn't turn her away because if she really was like had a message from God, and they ignored that, then God could smite them and make them lose the war.
Yeah.
So it put King Charles, the Dauphin, that put him into like a really precarious situation. Like, do I believe this chick or not?
Yeah.
So they made her go through like all these like tests. First, does this girl really know the Lord? Is she like super like into this shit? Yeah. And then the second thing is they were, curious if she was really like pure. And she can refer to herself as La Pucelle, which means the maid.
Yeah.
So they even had like noble women and nuns check her out, and they're like, "Yep, she's a virgin."
I know. Yeah. I thought that part was hilarious.
Well, then on top
He
of that,
also had theologians examine her.
Yeah. And
They all reported nothing but chastity, piety, and humility.
Yep. Perfect for
my favorite.
And she had a following. So when she showed up the second time to that commander,
Yeah, there was a couple soldiers.
She had like a following of people who were like, "Listen to this chick," you know. So she shows up to court with like some followers, like everyone's checking her out, giving her A+ on all the tests, and so King Charles was like, "Well, I guess the biggest thing is she's just trying to put a crown on my head. Why not use her for like propaganda? Kind of make her a mascot of sorts."
Which is kind of what she was, like, ultimately.
Yeah. I mean, she just instilled, like, people seeing her, it just instilled, like, hope and faith. And they're like, this chick is, like, the thing, the purest thing ever. And she's came to us from God.
Yeah. Well, she also never actually saw a battle.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, she sees the aftermath.
No, she's in the battles, but she doesn't participate. Like, she just holds her banner, but she leads the charge, and she's involved. She's even injured twice.
Yeah, she gets shot in the shoulder and shot in the leg.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert. But really what we're getting at is this 17-year-old girl, backed with these godly visions. She's got all these small little village supporters.
She's 16.
And... well, before she, like, actually makes the trek, she's 17. But, yeah, when she's starting all this shit, she's 16. But also, like, all these theologians were trying to find anything in Scripture and anything anywhere to prove that this was the real deal, too. And they found something written by Merlin himself that said that there was going to be a maid who would show up and lead France to victory. So, everything's just coming up Joan of Arc.
La Pucelle means the maid, by the way.
La Pucelle. But, so she shows up at Orleans, and wants to stop the Civil War,
Mm-hmm.
She wrote to the King of England and demanded that he leave France, otherwise they'd face the wrath of the maid. Which I thought was cool, because she's actually illiterate, so she's telling people to write this down for her.
Yeah, she has scribes writing it.
Yeah. And she showed up to Orleans on, like, a wind. Like, literally the wind was bad and not letting their boats go through, and then she shows up and the wind turns directions,
Wow. That's crazy.
The troops, like, immediately came out to fight. They idolized her. She brought more food and more troops. Everything was just, like, when she showed up, everything turned the right way.
Improved.
Yeah. She had, like, her own private quarters because people were trying to touch her all the time. They were trying to, gain whatever she had, like all the villagers. So she had her own private quarters. But they didn't really want a teenage girl telling them what to do. And her whole thing was like, fucking send it, dude. Let's go straight after them. Let's ram it down their goddamn throats.
Just get out there and do it.
Meanwhile, they're all like, okay, like, calm down a little bit. And so they compromise. They'd attack, like, some of the Barristans, and then they would... Barristan? Is that the right word?
Barricades?
They're barricades. They would attack things, and they were just victorious every single time till eventually they all get into like this gatehouse. That's where they're like holding off the bridge for them to cross. Oh, garrisoned up in there, and she's just like again like ram it down their fucking throats, man.
Yeah.
And they get in there, and it's kind of looking dismal. It looks like everything's going down, and she gets shot in the shoulder, and she goes down. And everyone's, oh shit, dude, Joan of Arc's dead. She's not doing good. Her foot's injured at this time too, but she puts on her armor and fucking hobbles back out, and in the name of God. And it like inspires everybody to take over the fucking gatehouse, and that's how she took over Orleans.
Wow. That is very inspiring.
Yeah.
I did not look too much into the war details.
That was
awesome.
the most fascinating part to me. But yeah, so she takes over Orleans and drives all the Burgundy armies out, and it was like a huge fucking victory. And everyone's like, "Oh shit, man, France, they're coming back! Oh damn!" And then it's the trek to get the crown on,
Yeah, to Rome.
Um,
So is that when she becomes a captain? Commander?
yeah, they take Charles through all the different cities and stuff and try to take everything out, and then they finally get to Troyes. And they're basically like, all right, dude, like, you gotta let us in. Charles is king now. He's gonna take over. He's gonna get his crown and his throne. Um, and they just, wouldn't let him in for 4 days with Joan just screaming at him outside the castle, just like, open up in the name of God, dude. She was so sick. And made it in and put a crown on Charles's head, and she was standing next to him smiling, like she fucking did it. And she'd sent out what she was like going to do. Like that was her vision, and it's completed. Like, what is she gonna do now, right?
So they actually waited for a minute to go to Rheims because Joan was like, "Let's go right now. Send it. Go
Dude,
straight. Like,
so
put a crown on your head. Put a crown on your head."
Yeah.
And he was like, all right, we're cool now, but I'm not 100%. Like, I still don't fully trust you.
Right.
So they like waited a little bit, like a couple months, and then they went, and he got crowned, and she was right by his side, and she took a very prominent place in the ceremony, which was really important.
Yeah. And then eventually he dubs her and her parents as nobility, makes her a captain. Commander, sorry. And actually, like, the city she came from, he waived all taxes from that city.
Of Domremy?
Uh-huh.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, like when she had, like, helped him get the throne.
Some people lovingly refer to it as Domremy d'Arc.
What does that mean?
Like, like Joan d'Arc.
Oh.
Jean d'Arc. That's like her dad's last name.
Oh.
So she had like a whole bunch of names, and when she went into court, she testified that she didn't know what her last name was. It's like partly due to because in the Middle Ages in France, last names weren't like set necessarily, and like not everyone used them
or had one,
and yeah, it was like just like a really weird situation, honestly. But her mother's last name was either Rolme or Vauffon. So either of those could have been her last name, but Rolme literally was given to anyone that took a trip to Rome.
Oh.
Or another holy place.
Oh. So it's not even like you said, a set last name.
Yeah. But then her dad's last name, based on like spelling and like where an apostrophe or not an apostrophe is, like Tark, Dark, Tart, D'Arc, or De Vauffon. Like those could all have been her last name.
Oh.
But she, in court, referred to herself as Jean d'Arc. No, Jean La Pucelle.
Oh, okay. Jean the Maid.
Joan the Maid.
Joan the Maid.
Whatever. I know, it's really confusing.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Well, she's kind of at like at this point in her life, she's kind of like an in-between. Like, I did what I was supposed to do. What do I do now? She was kind of getting pushed out of like war meetings, because it didn't really concern her anymore. Like, she was still loved by the people and everything, but Charles then was trying to, set his eyes on Paris. He wanted to take Paris back over from, the Burgundy troops in England, because they had it at that point. And guess who's first in line to be like, I'm going?
Our girl Jean.
Joan.
Joan. Jean.
When they got there, she realized that it was like a lot harder than any of the other villages she ransacked. Even like Orleans, like Paris was like the most defensive city in all of France, and also like the people that were living in Paris supported the English. Like they were like, sway, like they were like no longer like we don't really care, dude.
Well, we learned all this in Vikings.
Yeah. So the first battle didn't go well. Joan was screaming up at him, and what does she get in return? A crossbow arrow to the leg. So she gets like carted away from the battle, and she doesn't come back out to inspire, and everybody retreats. And after that, Charles ended up making like a truce with the Burgundians, leaving the capital still in enemy hands, rather than like losing all of his troops and everything he's worked hard for.
Yeah.
He just said, for now, we're not going to fuck with you, don't fuck with us.
That's smart.
Yeah. But with them not defeating Paris, there was a lot of like really bad talk going on about Joan. Like all eyes went to Joan. It was like, you're supposed to be the word of God, and you said we were going to win, and we didn't win. Like people were pissed about it, like questioned her. The Burgundians called her a witch, and people started getting on that bandwagon. So for a little while there, she was like a hero to a zero.
Yeah. So the reason that the Burgundians and the English were so quick to jump on the anti-Joan bandwagon is because if they could get her convicted of heresy or being a witch, then it would automatically take away all of Charles VII's cred.
Exactly.
Like everything would be gone because she's the one that got him crowned on the word of God, and if she's a witch or a heretic,
yeah,
then all
or if
that's
it was
gone.
demons were talking to her. That
Yeah.
was a big thing. Was like they're not angels talking to her; they're demons. So they're all doing this and catcalling her, and eventually they get back, and Charles kind of gave her a bunch of like, I mean, more or less like money and gifts and stuff, and was like, "Fucking go home, dude. Like it's over. Your point in the story's done." But she refused to go. She wanted to keep fighting. She had to go help out Paris and had to go help out like the rest of the stuff. So she ends up going to like just like Charles like, hey, I'll put you on this little side mission. Go take out this tiny little thing.
Compay.
Compay, is that what it is?
Compagne.
Compagne.
Compiegene.
Compiègne.
I have no idea.
I don't know. I'm sorry, guys.
French is really hard.
That's what we say about every language, though.
French is the hardest. I don't say that about Spanish.
I guess that's true. But she goes to take him out and then ends up getting ambushed by the Burgundian army. So she, tried to run. She allowed the rest of her troops to run away, and surrender and get out and retreat and everything. But she stood her ground with her flag, her banner. Yeah. And they took her. The Burgundians eventually sold her to the English, and she gets imprisoned for about a year.
Oh, see, I have a little bit of a different story in that.
Oh, I like this.
Yeah.
What's your story?
So, I heard that she was ordered to that city to confront the Burgundian forces, and at the gate as they were sieging, like when they were going to go through, she had all her heavy armor and everything on, and somebody like yanked her from her horse and like threw her on the ground, and it like knocked the wind out of her and everything, and like with her armor she couldn't get up fast enough, so they captured her.
Oh.
Yeah.
See, you know what's actually really funny, guys? Did you know that Joan of Arc is one of the most recorded, like, women of all time? She's recorded more than, like, every French king. There's more stuff written about her.
Huh.
Yeah.
There's a lot. There is quite a bit.
I mean, sorry for the differing information, but...
No, I love it. Like, I love
it
that
too.
we're coming from different sources right now.
But essentially, she's held for like a year, and she's held in this giant castle, like 70 feet off the ground. And she already knows that she's fucked, dude. She just got sold to the English.
For 10,000 francs.
10,000 francs.
That's like a lot, then.
Yeah. And so she knows it's gonna go bad, and so the voices and like the visions are still telling her like, don't jump, don't jump. But she's like, I'm gonna at least try to get the fuck out of here rather than just be taken, And so she jumps from a 70-foot tower, and like she gets pretty fucked up, and she can't run away, and they end up just capturing her again, And then she gets taken to Bishop Pierre Cauchon. He was personally part of the negotiations of getting her sold to Britain, but he's the one that ends up like putting a trial against her.
Yeah.
Um, you know, and trying to make everybody know that she was a liar, a witch, or a heretic.
You know, she ultimately got 70 charges.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
70 charges.
So I read that when she got captured, Charles was like, he was kind of just like, well, I mean, I didn't really want to deal with her anyway. I don't know. We're just gonna see how this one plays out. Just leave her there. Just
like he
leave
was
her.
like, I'm outraged.
Like, we're sorry.
Yeah.
We're so sorry.
But he was trying to give her the option to go back and like live her, you know, farm girl life.
Yeah, she didn't want that. She's got a word from God telling her to do more.
Hell yeah.
How are you gonna go back to raising cows?
Exactly. But basically they put on this like huge trial.
70 charges.
Yeah. They ran her through the fucking ringer, dude. They were like, you know, they made her go and test everything all over again, like she already did, you know, with our King Charles in the beginning. They tried to bring up her past and her beliefs and every step like along the way to where she is, and her interrogators that were doing it were like super scholarly men, and she's like a little illiterate 17-year-old farm girl, or like maybe 18 or 19 at this point. But they tried to get her on one question, and they were like, everybody's breath was held, was, do you think you're going to go to heaven? And if she said no, then she was admitting to sin, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if she said yes, then it would contradict like the doctrine and saying that nobody truly knows if they're in the grace of God. So either way, it'd be an admission of heresy, and they could get her, right? You want to hear how Joan responded? This is her like exact quote.
Yeah.
She responds like a badass. If I am not in His grace, may God put me there, and if I am, may God so keep me. I should be the saddest creature in the world if I knew I were not in His grace. So she like, they're like, well, fuck, dude, like that's the most perfect answer you can ever have.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're not saying yes, you're not saying no, you're saying exactly what you need to say. You know, the only thing that they really get her on is when it came to the visions, she would like dodge the questions, you know. She'd either like not answer them, or she'd be like, no, I can only discuss that with my, you know, between myself and my king, you know. And eventually, Cauchon asked her privately in her jail cell to describe what the spirits looked like, and he was trying to come from like, yeah, you know, you see these visions, I'm really curious, what do they look like? And she said that they looked like a person like you or I. But that went against the Old Testament, because the Old Testament said that angels were just spirits; they didn't have any body. That's what she got pinned on, ultimately. That's what made her become guilty and lose the entire trial.
Oh, see, I actually read 2 other different things.
Fuck yeah, dude, I love this.
So, one of the things I read was that it was ultimately like the witchcraft that stuck, and first the trial was a massive public trial. But then once it was like days and days and days in and they were getting nothing, they made it a public trial, and they were kind of getting a little more forceful. And they like basically, one of the things I read said that she was forced to like, she signed this paper confessing to all of her sins, and the one that they got her on was dressing as a man.
Yep, they were super about that because that's against the Old Testament.
But that was like the first one that they got her to like confess to.
Right.
And then after that, they just like, well, we're just gonna tack on a bunch of these others. So you're a witch, and you know, once they got her on one.
Yeah, and it was May 24th, 1431, actually, when she stood charges of saying that she was a liar, or she was being eluded by a demon, or everyone had kind of a different idea of like what was causing her to be such a bad person, supposedly. She decided, like, you know, it's not going to get better. I'm just going to confess, like you said.
Yeah.
Signed that piece of paper. And so her life was saved because she confessed, you know, ultimately, but then they shaved her head and they made her wear a dress. And she was like, fuck no, I'm not wearing a dress. And so 2 days later she changes into men's clothes, and that's when they executed her.
Oh, see, I saw that she signed it because she thought they were going to put her back into French custody. And as soon as she signed it, they threw her back into the English jail.
Right.
And she was like, "Fuck that! If you're throwing me back in here, I'm wearing men's clothes." Because yeah, like you said, they forced her to shave her head and wear a dress.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just read it was because that they didn't give her back to France
It was
when
why
she
she did
signed
it.
it. Yeah.
Gotcha. And I was saying why they executed her was because that was, if you do a sin once and admit to it, you're fine. But if you do it again,
Yeah, no, but then she
Yeah.
did it again, so then they executed her.
right.
But I'm just saying her reason for dressing in men's clothes again was different.
Gotcha. Cool,
Yeah.
dude. I like how we're getting both backstories.
Yeah.
So they burned her at the stake. There was a guy in the crowd who actually held up a cross that she stared at the entirety of burning.
So I have actually quite a few possible last words of Joan, and one of them is about that moment. But dude, there was 10,000 people gathered to watch her burn.
Jesus.
Isn't that insane? So, okay, and also, this is like my favorite part of the story, I think. So, there's a legend about when Joan of Arc got burned that after everything smoldered down and the fire went away, her heart was still beating and perfectly fine and unaffected by the fire on the
That's
ashes.
so cool.
Right? So cool. But anyways, so she said, she asked that a cross be brought, and then she said, "Now keep it always in my sight until the end." And then, so that's one of her possible last words. And then another one is, "Water! Give me holy water!" Or, "Oh, Rowan, Rowan, must I die here, and must you be my tomb? Ah, Rowan, Rowan, I have great fear that you will suffer my death."
Who's Rowan?
It's the city she was in.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, that makes so much sense.
I don't know how to say it exactly, but.
Yeah.
So as the fire was lit beneath her, the bishop said, "I am come, Joan, to exhort you for the last time to repent and seek the pardon of God." She replied, "I die through you."
Whoa. That's pretty intense.
Yeah.
But ultimately, she doesn't have this tarnished reputation when she dies, after the fact. So, 8 years after her death in 1449, King Charles took back what was his, kicked out the English, and in 1453 he demanded a retrial for Joan, even though she's already been dead for a while, but he didn't like the fact that she died as a witch or died as a demon lover.
He decided that was unfair for all she did for his country.
Especially since the trial itself was unfair because it was people who obviously hated her. There
was no way she was going out of it.
Exactly. And so they basically rewrote history. King Charles did. He declared that Joan was not a heretic. She was dubbed a saint, a war leader.
No, she was martyred, but she did not become a saint then.
She was martyred.
Yeah.
She was, seen as one of the most influential women.
Yeah, and she was found innocent of all charges.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. On May 16th, 1920, she was named the patron saint of France.
That's what it was. Yeah, because I know she becomes a saint.
Yeah.
1920. That was a time of desperation in the country, too. I mean, really, she's just one of the most kick-ass chicks ever.
She was so cool. So, I had, like, a little fun fact about when she was the commander of the armies.
What?
So, she had, like, a terrible temper, and she would become furious with any soldiers who acted impiously.
Oh,
so,
really?
Like, anyone who, like, cussed or drank too much or didn't go to mass or cheated on their wife or slept around too much, like, anything like that. And she would, like, scream in the faces of, like, high-level soldiers.
Like this little chick.
Yeah, so the description I found of her is that she's roughly 5'2" with short dark hair, and there's no description of her face besides beautiful from various men. So, on the bit of her, like, not liking the impiousness of the army, so they would have, like, mistresses or, like, prostitutes follow them around, and, like, they're out on the road, like, lonely.
Yeah.
So she was like, you all need to get the fuck out of here, like, right now. And she made them leave at sword point, and she even slapped a few with her sword. Yeah.
Oh, that's hilarious.
And the mistresses. It's so funny. Like, she's just so tiny. And just, get out of here.
Just send it.
Smacked them with her sword. So originally, like, in her time, her name was spelled Jehanne.
Joan.
Joan.
I like that. It's pretty.
But, so at first, when she learned how to sign her name, it was just a cross.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And so she signed all of her own letters with her own hand.
Yeah.
And at first it was just a cross, and then it evolved and developed into a signature, and it was always just her first name. Like, it has, like, I saw, like, 3 different examples that exist today.
That's so
of, like,
cool.
her own handwriting, and they're, like, from 3 different time periods, so it, like, progresses a lot.
Gets better and
the 3
better.
of them. Yeah. It's really cool. It's always in, like, block, like, our alphabet.
Like block letters?
Yeah. Like, it's, I guess they're all lowercase, but they're, like, not cursive, is what I mean to
Gotcha.
say.
It's not like a
It's not fancy.
Yeah.
It's, like, just, like, written. I don't know. I just thought that was an interesting tidbit.
Really cool, dude. It's interesting, like, what you can learn from somebody's handwriting, you know?
Yeah, there's people who, like, study that, and they come up with, like, they can, like, judge your entire personality type based on your handwriting.
It's nuts.
It's really crazy.
Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Tenacious V's podcast. We really hope you enjoyed the episode. If you had any facts or any differing information that you want to share with us, man, we love Joan of Arc. Obviously, you could tell just in our energy how excited we were.
Yeah, let us know, and maybe we'll do another mini episode about her with other people's facts.
Ooh. Or if you have any recommendations, again, this one was for Roxy, let us know. We'll shout you out. And thank you guys so much for being a part of our community. We love you so much.
Love you, Rocks, and everyone else. We're out. Thanks for tuning in. We appreciate every listen, and we hope you'll be back next time. If you enjoyed that, you can give us a follow on Spotify, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Patreon, Podbean, and Instagram. We post lots of cute doggy pictures on Instagram. As always, this episode was spoken, written, and recorded by, well, I guess this one was just Julia and Nona, so it's a little bit of a twist, but you get the gist. All musical contributions were done by Staple Mill. We hope you guys have a great week.